This is Democracy Watch. Mark, I bring the dog in for the good news here, and we have really surprising good news out of Wisconsin, a state that I did not think we would be talking about. So can you explain the new news out of Wisconsin thanks to your law firm?
Yeah, so the Wisconsin State Supreme Court has appointed a 3-judge panel to hear a lawsuit that my law firm brought on behalf of voters of Wisconsin, seeking new congressional boundaries in time for the 2026 elections. The theory is that the maps that are in place are impermissible partisan gerrymanders. In a parallel case or a very similar case, the state Supreme Court also appointed a 3-judge panel to hear a similar challenge, slightly different theory, as an anti-competitive gerrymander. And so both of those are now full steam ahead. Our case, we have made clear we are seeking results in time for the 2026 election.
Now, this comes in the aftermath of new legislative maps being drawn in Wisconsin. Is that correct? Breaking a gerrymander that had taken hold for decades?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, in both the congressional case and in the state legislative case, essentially the conservative majority of the state Supreme Court had really issued a series of rulings that had hamstrung the ability to have fair maps for this decade. I could give all the whys and the hows for it, but what you need to basically understand is that, notwithstanding the fact that the governor had and the Republican legislature had deadlocked over a new congressional map, the conservative Wisconsin Supreme Court essentially said, well, we're just going to do least change, which is basically just giving the Republican legislature what it wanted. And we believed that this was subject to a new legal challenge, and we have brought it. There is now obviously a new composition to the state Supreme Court, and that state Supreme Court has, over the fierce dissent of some of the conservatives on the court, has appointed this 3-judge panel. Now, this doesn't mean that the fight is over. This is actually just the first procedural step in, now we have to prove our case before this 3-judge panel. And Lord knows if we prevail, it'll probably wind up back in the Wisconsin Supreme Court. But look, one of the things I've promised, your audience for years now is we fight hard. We fight with every tool available, and if there is a good claim to bring, we are going to bring it. It doesn't mean we're going to win every case, but we're going to bring it, and we're going to fight to make sure that there are fair maps, fight to make sure that there are free and fair elections, and we are not going to just accept the status quo because that's the way it's always been done. We're not going to back down because, well, the norms say you should walk away from the table. If I'm very proud of the legal work we do. I'm very proud of the creativity of the lawyers, but I'm mostly proud of their tenacity and their never give up approach. And it's something that has been a hallmark of mine throughout my entire career. And that is what you're seeing, not just in Wisconsin, but in these redistricting cases around the country.
Yeah, and I should also note that you prevailed as well at a trial court in Texas for their illegally racially gerrymandered maps. So this is fights that you've waged across this country, which is especially important right now, given the fact that Republicans have been so forward-leaning in terms of their willingness to redraw their maps. We've seen it done in Texas, in Missouri, in Ohio, in North Carolina. We know it's going to be done in Florida. Indiana has now reconvened a session, as we've spoken about in a previous episode, so that they can consider redrawing their maps. That's going to happen on December 8th. And so we need a forward-leaning posture, and it's thanks to a lot of the lawsuits that you've brought that can neutralize some of what we've seen from Republicans. So look, a small step that we all can take, those who are watching right now, to support Mark's work, not just in the media space, but in the courts where it matters most, is to sign up for Democracy Docket, which is the news outlet Mark founded to focus on everything voting and elections. It's where I get all of my news about anything that relates to redistricting, because this stuff is not covered in legacy media, even though it should be. So I'm going to put the link to Democracy Docket right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. If you're not yet signed up, do yourself a favor, support strong independent media and sign up. Mark, it's worth asking here, because this is always my question, the likelihood of these new maps being in place for 2026.
That is the goal. I mean, we are litigating all of these cases, including the one in Wisconsin, for 2026. There are other really good voting organizations and groups that have the luxury of bringing what you could refer to as impact cases, cases to try to change the trajectory of law over time. The work that I have always done, the hallmark of my legal work throughout my career, has really been to try to litigate cases that will make a meaningful difference to voters in the next election. And so, if I didn't think we had a chance of impacting the map for 2026 in Wisconsin or in New York, where we're also, as you know, challenging the map, or in Missouri, where we're also challenging the map, right? Like, if I didn't think we had a chance of impacting it now, I don't know that we'd be involved, but I certainly wouldn't be talking about it in the same way. We seek to get relief because the problem with looking out 2 years or 4 years is that for the affected voters, like, you're giving them nothing. Like, sure, maybe you're developing the law for future elections, for future voters, but the indignity of having to cast your ballot under unlawful lines or in lines that violate federal law, whether it's the Voting Rights Act or something else, or malapportionment, or under unconstitutional lines, no voter should have to live with that. So we are absolutely pushing full steam ahead in Wisconsin, as well as all these other states.
I think it's worth noting, too, that as far as Wisconsin is concerned, the last statewide election for the Wisconsin Supreme Court, for example, saw the liberal candidate win by like a 10-point margin. So I know that we like to think of this as a 50-50 state, and oftentimes it is a 50-50 state. It's the state that reelected Ron Johnson to the U.S. Senate. But at the same time, we have seen Democrats turn out to the point where they're winning these elections 55-45 in what should be a deadlock state. So pretty wide margins here. And yet it's worth noting that the congressional map is, of the 8 seats that they have, 6 are occupied by Republicans, whereas only 2 are occupied by Democrats. So what could be on the table if we have a redrawn map in that state?
It should be 50-50, right? I mean, it's a 50-50 state by every measure, and it should be a 50-50 congressional delegation by any fair measure. And that's certainly what I would hope if there was a court-drawn map in Wisconsin. If we're able to prevail and we wind up with a new court-drawn map. Look, I think from state to state, we see this same pattern emerge, which is where Republicans are in control, they gerrymander every last seat they can.
Right. When
Democrats are in control, they maybe go a little bit past fair, but not as far past fair. But they try to stay within. Let me try it again. Where Republicans are in control, they gerrymander every seat they can. And when Democrats are in control, they try to do fair with a lean towards Democrats. And that is, democracy is going to die on that, which is the reason why, as when California first came up, I said, Gavin Newsom should do 9 seats. I said the Democrats should gerrymander 30 seats nationwide. Now, in Wisconsin, that's not going to happen because it will be a court-drawn process if we're successful, almost certainly, because the governor and the state legislature still have opposite parties. But I would think 50-50 would be fair.
Can you talk about how we get to the process of the court drawing the maps as opposed to, the options are, there's a ton of options, right? Like there's a governor's drawn map. There is a legislature drawn map. There are maps where people can submit maps from the community. And so how do you land at a place where it's the court that's going to be the arbiter of what the map is going to look like?
Yeah. So look, when the legislative process, which in Wisconsin involves the legislature and the governor, are unable to agree, ultimately the courts have to adopt a map. Now, they can do it by drawing it themselves. They can hire a special master. They can hire a team of special masters. They can, as you say, take suggestions from the public or from the parties and then choose one among them. All of those I would put in the ambit of court-drawn maps, right? They may not literally have the software in front of them, but they are the ones who are deciding on the map. And so I would think a 50-50 map in Wisconsin is where, if we're successful, we're most likely to land.
Now, in terms of choosing that map, is it going to be the Wisconsin Supreme Court that does it?
So I think that's TBD. I think in the first instance, it might very well be this 3-judge panel that does it, because Supreme Courts are particularly ill-suited to do these kinds of things as larger multi-member bodies. They typically don't do this. They usually delegate it down to a smaller number of judges, or in some cases even a single judge. But like I said, there are a number of ways they can proceed by way of special masters or other things. The most important thing to keep in mind about Wisconsin is this: we cannot cede any place in the country to the other side. We cannot say that because the law is what it is in a state like New York or New Jersey or Virginia or California, we cannot fight. We cannot say that because there had previously been a court-drawn map in Wisconsin, there's no claims left to bring. I mean, sometimes you look at them and there really are no claims. And I'm the first one to say, like, if there's no way to change the situation or to fight, I don't believe in fighting just for the sake of fighting and not having a chance to win. But we have to be clear that if there is a chance of prevailing, if there is a legal theory to use, if there is an opportunity, we need to take it. I mean, we are at a break glass moment for democracy.
Yeah.
And everything needs to be on the table. And you've been really insightful about this, and really very early on, we're talking about how, every time that Democrats would say there was nothing to be done, and then we'd watch Republicans and lo and behold, there'd be something to be done, you'd kind of like shake your head and you'd be like, wait a second, we were told there was no way to do this.
Right.
And so it's important that in this moment of history around democracy, whether it's redistricting or voting rights or the House rules, the Senate rules, whatever it is, that we have to use every tool available to us.
I think that's perfectly put. Again, for those who are watching right now, if you want to support the invaluable work that Mark is doing in the media and in the courts, the best way to do that is to sign up for Democracy Docket. You will not regret it. I'm going to put that link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. And of course, to watch more Democracy Watch episodes with Mark, click that link on the screen as well. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
I'm Mark Elias.
This is Democracy Watch.